Indeed, indeed. Sorry for the delay, but it should be a very exciting game, very competitive game. We've seen JPak has had the last two games really upsetting some well-known teams. Of course, yesterday upset Dignitas, and earlier in the tournament, I guess this was last weekend, played against V8 and beat them.
Yep, so I have the ready signal from both teams, so we should be getting started with this game right now.
Woohoo! Of course. Also, we have MTWNA, which is formerly known as the artist Goose, and they are playing Fortnite Gaming over on Channel 2. Fortnite Gaming, of course, recently picked up Dan Din, so that should be a really entertaining game as well. Of course, I'd rather you stay here with us. We are in Champ Select. We are ready to go, and this is, of course, TSM and JPak and friends, so there's no reason to go to Channel 2, but if you are a really big Goose fan, which is now MTWNA, or a really big fan of Dan Din and Fortnite Gaming, certainly that is going along at the same exact time here.
Yep, so we see an Alistar ban from TSM, which is the blue team, and a Lee Sin ban from JPak and friends, who is the purple team. So those are, the Alistar ban isn't as commonly seen in solo queue and stuff like that, but I think they really wanted to take Alistar as an option for JPak. We also see an Udyr ban from TSM.
Yeah, that is an interesting ban. Of course, a lot of people have been playing Udyr. A lot of people have been first picking Udyr in our games because you can first pick Udyr, but they don't know whether you're going to send him top or in the jungle, so they can't really counterpick him top. And in addition to that, Udyr is very hard to counterpick. We do see an Urgot ban going down. That is a counter ban towards Chaos, directed at Chaos, because of course he's been practicing that Urgot, especially since Moscow 5 kind of championed that strategy in Hanover.
Yep, so now we're just waiting on the last ban by the odd one, which is going to be Katarina.
Whoa, that is an interesting choice. Perhaps it was just a ban to, fill up the space. I don't know anyone on JPak and friends that actually plays Katarina an incredible amount. I'm pretty sure Kennick is their AP carry, and I was just looking at his history, and there weren't an incredible amount of Katarina games on there, so I'm not exactly sure what his concern was. The one thing I would say is Katarina is often seen as a somewhat of a pick to Rise. So it is possible that TSM's trying to get the Rise pickup here, but I wouldn't put too much credence into that fact. We also see the last ban coming down from JPak and friends being Ash, so I'm not certain if they're kind of trolling last bans there. They didn't really have anyone else that they wanted to ban, or if they know something we don't, which is also very likely.
Yeah, I think the Ash ban is aimed at Chaos, and I think Ash might have been banned in one of the games yesterday as well against TSM. So that might be what's happening. We see Kog'Maw being picked up as the first pick for TSM. Kog'Maw has been used a lot lately. I think basically all of the games that we've casted this weekend have had Kog'Maw in it.
Yeah, that is certainly true. And Kog'Maw's also been being ran as an AP in a lot of the games that KDH and Monte Cristo have been casting. In all of our games, he's been used as an AD carry so far. For JPak and friends, they pick up Corki and Janna, which is a really standard combination nowadays. Of course, it's the combination that Dignitas really, really likes to run with I'm a Cutie Pie down there and Locust, but JPak and friends defeated Dignitas yesterday in a best-of-3 match, although Dignitas did have to forfeit the first game because they didn't have Scar, and Scar was also not there for the second game. JPak did take it in very impressive fashion.
Kind of ironic that they're getting Katarina banned against them because they beat Dignitas without Scar yesterday.
Yes, that is a little bit ironic. Of course, Scar is the only person to really play Katarina in a competitive scene. We do see a Soraka and what looks to be an Olaf, but then a Renekton. We'll actually have to wait until they lock in here. I wouldn't be surprised with either Olaf or Renekton, but I would expect Olaf a little bit more.
Yep, so just a couple seconds left before... Oh, actually Renekton is locked in by Dyrus.
Alright, well, that should be interesting. We haven't seen too much Renekton in competitive play. We saw Voyboy play him against Hotshot once, Hotshot's Cho'Gath, and he actually really dominated early game, but fell off a little bit late game. Cho'Gath proved to be an incredible tank, whereas Renekton, just fell off a tiny bit. That being said, Renekton, of course, does have better item build paths now with the Maw of Malmortius coming out. Of course, Hexdrinker builds into that, and it adds damage the lower life you are. So that is certainly a great item for AD casters, which of course Renekton is.
Yep, so we see Kennen being locked in for JPak and friends, and Nautilus now being locked in. They've run Nautilus in the jungle several times in this tournament so far, and it's worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah, it certainly has, and we've actually seen some Nautilus bans. Nautilus brings you a lot of CC from the jungle, really good ganks, and good teamfight presence, and he also generally builds support items. He'll normally run Philosopher's Stone into Heart of Gold, into Aegis or Frozen Heart, so I expect we'll see more of the same. For TSM, it looks like they are going to pull down a Mundo, which will most likely go in the jungle, and Reginald might be going on Cassiopeia middle.
Yep, and we see Xerath being shown for JPak and friends. Now, Xerath was played recently. Wait, was it JPak and friends who played Xerath?
No, it wasn't JPak and friends. That was actually Just Your Average Joe's.
Yeah,
Captain Korea played an amazing Xerath. Really showed his burst potential. But if you look at Kenneth's match history, he actually has been practicing Xerath, has been playing Xerath quite a bit. So I'm not surprised by that. Actually, that is kind of the champion I expected him to go with here, and as I said, I didn't see any history of Katarina in his past, or a large usage of it. So it makes me believe more and more that they simply just we're banning out Katarina just kind of for the fun of it. Yeah, but once again, it does look like a pretty interesting matchup here. We don't have TSM swapping up their champions yet, but I'm pretty sure what we'll see is Chaos will swap up with the odd one here. Or actually, how are they going to do this? Yes, Chaos will swap up with the odd one. Yes, then there it is. There is a swap. We'll take Mundo into the jungle using that exhaust. Xpecial using his Clairvoyance Flash there. We'll be supporting that Kog'Maw, and really the whole goal there is just to make sure the Kog'Maw doesn't get burst down early, and then he will be really dominant late game, provided they can give him some protection. And there's very little protection better than having a Mundo in the front lines, just really separating the rest of the team, the enemy team, from your Kog'Maw. So I expect that'll work out well. The one thing I would be concerned of for that bottom lane of Xpecial and Chaos is that Corki and John are a little bit more offensive early game, and they are carrying Exhaust and Ignite, so certainly they're going to try to pick up some early kills.
Yep, and they also have to be careful about ganks from Nautilus, because his ganks are so good. He has a lot of CC, which can really help them shut down the bottom lane if they want to.
Right, and I would be worried about that, especially in middle lane, because there's really no way to escape him once he uses his ultimate. Of course, you can flash away, but that ultimate is still going to knock you up and still put you in a really bad position for a possible dredge line, which will pull you back closer towards the enemies. Top lane is going to be interesting with a Kennen versus a Renekton. I would give that matchup to Renekton early on, and then I think we will see probably a Malmortius build. That Hexdrinker really helps you survive Kennen's ultimate, as throughout the mid game, because of course he will get you low with that ultimate. The Hexdrinker will grant you that shield that defends against magic damage, and it will likely be enough to save his life in most instances, provided that Renekton gets low in the first place.
Yep, and I'm interested in seeing the jungles right now, because the Dr. Mundo pick is more of a control. He does very well clearing and controlling the jungle, and the TSM is really probably going to try to invade and try to control the buffs of JPak and friends. And Nautilus has great ganks, but he isn't as good at clearing the jungle and really fighting in the jungle, so we'll see how he deals with that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I expect to see a lot of counter jungling from the Mundo, as you said. A little bit better of a duelist, has more control, clears faster, is carrying that exhaust. That being said, it's really hard to kill Nautilus in the jungle because he can use his dredge line on the terrain, and that'll help him run away really rapidly. Of course, he also has his Riptide, which will slow people down that are chasing him, and his Flash. So he's going to be relatively safe from any aggression in the jungle, but he might lose out on some camps, and I expect that to happen.
Yep, and I think that's actually what we saw earlier in the tournament, where JPak and friends went down a little bit in the jungle, but the Nautilus was actually still able to come back because he was able to have good ganks and really be useful to his team despite being put behind early.
Yeah, and certainly you can watch all the VODs on our YouTube channel. That is YouTube/ggChronicle. They will be up there, and of course you can watch the game that we were talking about, wherein Onion Bagel was on Nautilus, did get counter jungled really heavily by Dignitas at the start of the game, but he was just very patient. Very, very patient, almost overly patient in my opinion, in the sense that he was still like level 2 when the opposing jungle was level 4, but he did catch up, and of course there were ganks that were planned for him in his own jungle, and he kind of avoided those by just making sure he went where he knew the enemy team wasn't. So did a really good job of that and was able to come back late game and be a really strong force.
Yep. So, a little bit of time before we get into the game and get started. I just want to remind everybody that this is the semifinals of the ggClassic, sponsored by gaming.stackexchange.com. It's a great site for answers and questions to your to League of Legends and other games as well. So check that out. There's also a contest going on right now. If you submit a question or answer a question, the most viewed question will get a prize. What is that prize, Soter?
What is that prize? That prize is a solid-state drive and or a 27-inch HD TV LCD monitor. So that is, two great prizes there. Stack Exchange is also giving away RP cards, I believe $25 RP cards, just randomly in raffles to anyone who posts questions on their site, League of Legends related, that of course has ggClassic in their profile. So just put it in your user profile, anywhere in the profile. They will certainly find it, and you'll be entered to win those $25 RP cards, as well as the previously stated prizes, the solid-state drive and the 27-inch LCD HD TV.
Yep, so, alright, now we're in the game. Oh, so apparently Kennick was the first one in NA to get a pentakill on Cat, so, I mean, that's the reasoning, but both teams are heading out. Looks like JPak and Friends is looking to protect their jungles, really spreading out and covering all the entrances to the jungle. As CV sees Xerath here, so Special is going to go in with Cassiopeia, and they're going to have to back off.
Right, and TSM has the advantage here of Clairvoyance, and Clairvoyance is a really nice advantage early game, and TSM is putting pressure on, but they are actually playing defensive too. They're just playing an offensive defensive strategy here. By being so offensive, they're ensuring that they're not going to be counter jungled or invaded here. They have sight on basically everyone except Kennen, because they ran up middle. Reginald saw JPak on Janna. Of course, Chaos ran into Azul LOL on Corki. So they basically know where everyone is. TSM does have the advantage, but they're not going to invade. But we do see some pings going down on race. There are 2 wards, one from each team there.
Yep, so they both have a vision over there. There's also a ward in this bush from JPak and Friends. So they're really trying to keep track of their own jungle. They know that in terms of clearing, Nautilus is not as good as Mundo, so they're just compensating by getting better vision of it.
Yeah, and that's not really to say anything negative about Nautilus. He's a pretty fast clearer, but Mundo is just top of the line right now because of his Burning Agony. Just does so much AoE damage to the camps.
Yep, and I think it looks like we're going to see Reginald getting the first blue buff. Dyrus actually helping him out with that. So they're going to take both buffs simultaneously, really, with the Odd One getting the red down here with help from Special, while Reginald is going to get that blue buff and really help him out in lane a lot.
Right, and that is a good strategy. I've seen that more and more in solo queue and in competitive play. Whether it is grabbing that blue buff for your mage or giving the red buff to your AD carry while you counter jungle the opposition's red buff. I've seen both of those strategies pretty frequently. The one thing here, though, is it did bring Dyrus down to half life, and he got into lane a little bit late. So Kennen has a slight advantage there, but I'm sure nothing that Dyrus can't catch up from.
Yep, Odd One using that ward to try to get in here and steal something, but the ward there from Onion Bagel also helping him see that. The Odd One is still around, so it looks like he wants a chance at stealing this red, but Onion Bagel actually knows this and lets Mundo get the aggro from the red buff and is just sitting in this bush waiting for him to do something.
Right, now Odd One's going to clear it, but Onion Bagel knows what's happening. Reginald is doing a good job of zoning Kennick out of range for being able to run back in and help out Onion Bagel. But Onion Bagel doing a little bit of damage, but he goes down for first blood. Does get ignited and killed by Reginald. Of course, Reginald did zone Kennick out and now kills Kennick 2. So Reginald just doing a fabulous job there, zoning out Xerath, ensuring that he couldn't go and help Onion Bagel on Nautilus. Of course, Reginald, or Odd One rather, did get a little bit low, but had the exhaust to help him out, and had Reginald getting there before Kenneth could on Xerath.
Yep, and I think the blue buff actually was working out really well. It helped. Oh, actually, he's going to catch Onion Bagel in here in the jungle and was going to go back, but really low on mana despite having that blue buff. But that blue buff actually helped to go in there and keep up the damage despite spamming her spells.
Right, and additionally, she was only able really to zone out that Xerath because she could spam all her spells, did push the wave back to the turret, and, had significant enough mana to be able to contest, any sort of battle that might come forward. So TSM picks up an early 2-0 lead, 1.3k gold ahead already. So that's a pretty sizable advantage, especially so early on, within 4 minutes there. Of course, we see a lot of these games, they go 10-15 minutes before we see first blood. No, not this game. This game, we are seeing a lot of aggression, a lot of good play there, and I feel like TSM's kind of taking a page out of Moscow 5's book, because that is how Moscow 5 has really been dominating in the more recent tournaments, just doing that counter jungling and having their lanes really force the opposition in a bad spot so they can't counter that counter jungle effectively. Of course, you want your whole team to respond to any counter jungling attempts, but when you're pushed back behind your turret and your path to your jungler is longer than theirs, then you're just in a bad spot, and that's what's happened so far.
Yeah, we just saw Mundo go in there and take the raids, just really forcing Nautilus to back away because Cassiopeia was there as well with the lane pushed.
Right, and not only that, but Mundo traveling around the jungle there is really making nothing here on Cannon up top. A little bit suspicious that there might be action coming down. Of course, there were some pings from JPak and friends, suggesting that Mundo might be coming up for a gank there. He wasn't, in fact, but just the fear, of course, is always frightening.
Yep,
and we see Reginald tower diving.
And it hasn't, gotten tower aggro yet because he hasn't attacked yet, but he's still taking a lot of damage from Onion Bagel and from Kennick, but he's able to really just pop a health potion and get out of there, as they're too afraid to actually engage with Kennick down so low.
Right. Well, I mean, he was attacking, and he did get Kennick very low, but but the Odd One's doing some more counter jungling. Onion Bagel out of mana, only at 2/3 life, not really going to fight against that Mundo, who now has a 2-level advantage on him as well.
Yep, so Mundo just keeping control of that jungle, forcing the Nautilus to stay back, and really this has allowed TSM to take about a 2k gold advantage this early in the game.
Yeah, and that is certainly substantial. Bottom lane, we see Chaos really farming away. 53 minion kills to 38 on Corki, and it seems like they're just pushing him back to their turret. Of course, when you're playing a champion like Corki with someone like Janna, you're almost forced to pick up Boots 3 pots because you don't have any natural sustain. So the counter strategy to that is push them into their turret, because it's a little bit harder to last hit under the turret, even for professionals, if you don't have that extra increased attack damage to one-hit the ranged minions after they've been hit by the turrets.
Yep, and we do see this push. He's actually trying to put some poke down on them as he does this, as well as about half health right now with all his health potions used up. And
that is a good strategy. And meanwhile, in the jungle, we see 36 minion kills to 17 for Nautilus. So another big advantage there for TSM. Top lane, we see nothing here, being very tentative about his farming. Dyrus trying to go aggressive, but that lightning rush of Ken, keeps his distance for now.
Yep. And actually, the TSM going to take this blue buff very quickly and just walk out of here. JPak and friends had the ward there, but weren't able to respond and do anything about this.
Right, they had 3 members there. Of course, Kog'Maw was able to push back the bottom lane to the tower on his own, and Soraka was able to walk away just based on the virtue of Kog'Maw being a little bit ahead, having full mana, full life. So, of course, there couldn't be a defense of that blue buff. Now Reginald level 7 to Xerath level 5. Of course, that means he has his ultimate, and Xerath does not quite yet. His blue buff, Xerath does not. A really big advantage there.
Yep, so we see Nautilus going in, maybe looking for a gank on Dyrus right now. This is going to be basically the first gank of the game, and Dyrus backs off, and he is just going to... oh, actually we see Reginald coming in and getting a kill on Xerath, jumping in there, using that blue buff to spam skills and stuff very effectively, even after tower diving. So another kill for TSM. They are ahead, now. We see the odd one coming into the jungle, using that CV to help get vision and to steal more buffs.
Right, and of course, Reginald wisely took advantage while he had his ultimate and Xerath did not quite yet. Xerath's still level 5, Reginald now level 8 on Cassiopeia. A rather huge advantage. Up top, the farm is very similar. Renekton, played by Dyrus, has just a slight advantage, but of course, Ken just went back to buy and may catch up here.
So Renekton actually going past the tower to farm up some and really just push this lane up even more.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of newer players especially are like, oh, I can hit the tower, I really want to do that. But you see pro players often keep that tower up as long as possible, because what that tower is doing is, decreasing the amount of farm that Kennen is going to get, in the sense that the tower is going to kill all those minions, and just by pushing back and killing the minions beyond the tower, just his minions will reach the tower that much earlier, and their opposition will be zoned out of that much more farm.
Yep, so looks like TSM is ahead by a significant amount at this point. Well, not completely significant, but they have 3 kills to none for JPak and friends, and they're doing a very good job of farming up right now. Right,
and Kog'Maw's really strong after level 6, has a lot of poke. Of course, he wants to save a lot of his mana, but he has Special there on Soraka to regenerate all his mana with that Infuse. Of course, Infuse can no longer be cast on Soraka, but now grants more mana regeneration to his allies. So Chaos is going to be able to use Living Artillery kind of at his... whenever he wants to do that. Up top we see Dyrus does rush that early Hex Drinker, so now he as Hex Drinker will be a little bit more safe from any sort of gank or any sort of aggression from Kennen, especially if Kennen pops his ultimate Slicing Maelstrom. That little shield from Hex Drinker is not really little. It is 250 magic damage, which very frequently is the difference between life and death.
Yep, so the Nautilus is still going around in his jungle, and a ward spots him, so he is not able to gank. He really hasn't had much of an effect in this game so far. He got behind early and really hasn't been able to come back from that.
Yeah, certainly. That counter jungling was very, very effective from Mundo. Really good show so far by the Odd One. And bottom lane, despite having more aggressive summoner spells, hasn't really been able to take advantage of that. Soraka just healing too much, and Kog'Maw able to farm at range and poke at range to the extent that he hasn't been zoned out. Even when Soraka runs away. Oh, and I might have spoke a little bit early, as they are going on the aggressive on Kog'Maw, but Kog'Maw's just turning around, nearly takes out Corki there, has to put the exhaust down on the Kog'Maw. So very dangerous indeed for that Corki, and I really expected them to have the advantage in that fight, but the heal was just a little bit too much for Kog'Maw, and Kog'Maw, with the advantage of that heal, was able to just take the fight in his favor. And really, Soraka still had Wish in her back pocket too. That is her ultimate, of course, which heals everyone on the map, but she didn't even have to use that for that fight, and it went soundly in favor of Kog'Maw.
Yep, and we see Mundo was soloing Baron for a while, getting a little help from Soraka. Dragon, not Baron. They take Dragon basically for free. The JPak and friends did not have vision of it. They had TSM had the vision ward here, so they knew about that. And now that's just gonna put them up even more ahead. Now over at mid, we see Onion Bagel coming around for a gank on Cassiopeia. Now he does throw that ultimate down, popping her ult up, and the ult from Xerath going in and dodging that ultimate from Cassiopeia, preventing Cassiopeia from killing him or stunning him. But Cassiopeia does manage to pick up the kill on Xerath before dying to Nautilus.
Yeah, that is very impressive, and Xerath was so tentative, didn't want to get close enough to the battle where he could be ulted by Cassiopeia. Still did get caught, but he was not using his skills to their fullest extent. Wasn't able to land a stun, just wanted to use his ultimate because he knew he could be taken down so quickly, and he was in fact taken down there. Meanwhile, bottom lane, wow, Chaos doing such an impressive job farming, 123 to Corki's 82, so that is over 40 minions up, and that is a huge lead. Of course, about 12 minions is equal to a champion kill, so Chaos there is almost 3 champion kills up just by virtue of his superior farm.
Yep, and Xpecial's just sitting here, maybe waiting for a chance to come in. They do have a ward here, and Mundo is waiting in the wings, trying to come in for a steal. So their TSM is waiting to come in to get that steal, and the Smite actually gives him that buff.
Yeah, of course, one thing you want to do is you always want to donate those buffs to your AP middle, and so far this game, I don't think Xerath has received one. The danger is when you give them to your middle, you have, of course, your middle's spell damage going against the Smite if the other jungler is around. In that case, the Smite won out, and Mundo got the buff. Of course, he doesn't really need blue buff, but his main goal is to keep it away from that Xerath. She did.
And Mundo just coming in and taking these raises again. These are basically his raids now. I don't know if Nautilus has gotten more than one of those raids so far. Now it looks like they're both teams are looking to take this red buff. Kennen coming down and Lightning rushing in. They chase away the Mundo and actually going to jump on top of him with the ultimates coming down from all three members of JPak and Friends. And now a flash coming in to try to take down Reginald. Now Onion Bagel drops really low and gives up the blue buff to Reginald, and now Xerath is going to have to get away, and he does, retreating behind the towers.
Right, and of course, in the meantime, I think the minions did take down that one turret, so now Xerath has pushed back to a second turret. He does get blue buff, though. I mean, of course, that fight didn't go in their favor. It was a 1-for-2. Certainly not beneficial for them, but, Xerath is probably just a little bit happier because he has that blue buff. That's, a slight recompense for the loss of that team fight.
Yeah, but at the same time, the Cassiopeia also got a blue buff from the Nautilus, so not exactly the... it was a blue buff trade as well.
Yes, exactly. Both of the mages inheriting the blue buff, as they are kind of want to do. It's supposed to go to them, in my opinion, and it does in this case. But we saw, Kennen come down there, and essentially they lost at 2v3, and Kennen wasn't able to farm top lane, so Dyrus took advantage of that. Now is 24 CS ahead of that Kennen.
Yep, and they do take that red buff, the odd one picking that up, so the red buff also, again, going to TSM, being really successful with that counter jungling.
Yeah, and there's not too much more to say about it than that. The one thing, I guess, that, the one thing going in favor of JPak and Friends is they do have both the Heart of Gold and the Philosopher's Stones on Nautilus, so he's making a lot of money passively. He also actually does have 61 minion kills, and Mundo only has 71 at this point, so really he's kind of catching up in overall gold earned. Mundo does have 3 assists but no kills, whereas Nautilus has 1 kill and 1 assist. So we do look at that. Looks like Mundo is only 400 gold ahead, and that's, his team has picked up a turret and a dragon, so that accounts for the 400 gold. If not for those two things, then Nautilus would actually be ahead in gold. Yep,
Xerath playing really carefully right here. His tower is down, so he has to back up a little bit, and that mid tower being down is actually going to help the TSM take control of the jungle even more.
Right, and we see this a lot from TSM. Very aggressive at taking early towers. Despite what I said earlier about, Dyrus leaving that tower up, the team kind of, MO is to take down those towers early, really to group up early and take the towers whenever they can, just because it is certainly an advantage to their whole team. 150 gold for the outer turrets, so it's almost like taking a dragon every time you take those turrets.
Yep, so right now, TSM is up about 5k in gold with a 62 lead in kills, and 5k in gold is a significant amount to be up by the 16-minute mark.
Yeah, no, it certainly is not insurmountable by any measure, and I feel that JPak and Friends does have a really good team fighting team. They have Janna, which can reset a team fight for them, is really great defensively. They have Corki, who is a kind of an AoE beast in team fights, and Xerath and Kennen both can use their ultimates, both can hold people in place for a little while. With the addition of the CC from Nautilus, they're going to be able to do a lot of AoE damage.
Yep, and so we'll just see how the team fights go when it gets there. Meanwhile, Nautilus is coming down, maybe looking for a chance to gank. The tower does go down, so he's going to jump in here, and Azulal coming in with the ultimate going down on Chaos. The ultimate takes a long time to reach him, though, and that allows him to get back far enough that JPak and Friends isn't going to be able to do anything with this. Cassiopeia is coming up, looking for a chance to pick up a kill on somebody. Right now she's 6-1, so she's really fed, but she's not going to get there in time to pick off anybody.
No, not there in time to pick off anyone, but Dragon is up, and TSM is going to be able to take this one basically for free here. Nautilus, of course, just uses ultimate, which is, kind of their initiator for the team fight. Kennen is top lane. Renekton came down middle to, ensure that JPak and Friends didn't try to challenge that Dragon. Was, of course, a lot closer than his counterpart Kennen there.
Yep, so Ken's just at top, just trying to farm up a bit, while the rest of TSM is basically just in middle. Dyrus actually going back up top to keep that tower up and to just not lose out on all this farm, as TSM is coming here to steal this blue buff once again.
Yeah, so we have a couple of interesting things going on here in builds. I'm going to get at, while it seems like we're not going too aggressive, although as I say that, Dyrus is going pretty offensive against the Kennen up top. Looks like he will back off. Takes a lot of damage, and actually Kennen took some damage too, but was able to heal it up thanks to that Will of the Ancients. But we have Dyrus pulling out the Maw of Malmortius, so I mentioned that beforehand. That makes Renekton probably a little more viable in competitive play, just the fact that he has better items to build into endgame. Soraka built 3 GP10 items, Kage's Lucky Pick, Heart of Gold, and Philosopher's Stone before she even built boots, and now, of course, she has boots now, but didn't then. When I was just looking at it about 3 seconds ago. So a recent pickup there for Soraka, and Mundo looks to be rushing, a Frozen Mallet there, but actually it's going to stick with the Phage, and now has a recurve bow, which will quite possibly turn into a Wit's End. That's a build we usually see. And finally, the last interesting thing that I'm going to go over for right now, before we, likely have some action going on here, is a Phantom Dancer rush on Kog'Maw. Most AD carries don't have enough base damage that you can really justify going straight Phantom Dancer, but I think Kog'Maw is the exception to the rule. Has a ton of damage. That Phantom Dancer really helps him do a lot as well. And yeah, he's certainly able to, push off that bottom lane and out-damage a Corki, and Corki has some of the best damage early on, especially through mid-game once he gets his ultimate at level 6.
Yep, so Mundo and Soraka actually, and Dyrus here, just coming around in the jungle, and they're really taking control of the jungle, putting up wards, clearing out wards with that Oracle's on the odd one, and now taking this red buff once again.
Right, and now basically JPak's jungle is TSM's jungle. I mean, it almost has been this entire matchup. Mundo really took control of that top jungle, took those wraiths, got that early first kill on Nautilus at his red, and since then has just, had no fear being in there. He, did fall down one time, but he only fell in a 2v3 fight where Reginald was able to pick up those other 2 kills. Yep,
and it looks like TSM is going to take this top tower, which they do.
Yes.
Kennen comes in but is too late, isn't able to do much there with 3 members of TSM. So right now, TSM has 4 towers, just pushing down towers and helping it's really helping them to take control of the jungle as well, even though they've already had control of the jungle since the very beginning of the game.
Right, and a 10,000 global gold lead. Odd one is like, hey, Nautilus, why are you in my jungle? Get out of there. Of course, they have that ward coverage. He went aggressive on that Nautilus, despite the fact that Xerath was there, Janna was there, and Odd one actually had no backup. He's like, well, I still have my ultimate. I'm really strong. I just face tanked that turret up top. I knew Rock was going to come in and heal me. But yeah, he is just doing what he pleases, tanking turrets as he pleases, chasing after big tanky Nautiluses with no backup in sight. But that is what Mundo does.
Yep. So Mundo actually not noticing the ward at first and then taking care of it. Janna dropped another one, but he was still there, so was able to take that out as well. Janna waiting for Mundo to leave before putting down another ward.
I love this dance. I'm a very frequent participant in this dance because I do play support. People sometimes think, hey, they have an Oracle, I can't put down wards. No, you still have to put down the wards. You still have to have sight of Baron, especially, just about at all times. Despite the fact that he's basically feeding Mundo here, there's no other option. The other option is you let them, you forego sight and then you let them take Baron, which they are going after right now. But since JPak and friends knew they were being so aggressive taking out their wards, they are smelling this out. They are going to go in here, and we shall see what happens.
Yep, it looks like they turn around to start up the team fight, and looks like TSM wanted this. They are coming in, and the JPak has to retreat. The ultimate coming down from Reginald is going to take care of nothing here, and although nobody else really died, JPak and friends is unable to challenge this really fight right now because they're too weak against TSM.
Right. Well, one thing I would like to say is we've seen a really strong resurgence of Quicksilver Sashes in this entire tournament. Really popular item. Reginald using it there to great effect. The other thing of note in that fight was nothing here. Quickly became nothing there. heads. He tried to get in there, got caught a little bit, jumped on by that Renekton, didn't even have a chance to get his ultimate off, and it might have been a conscious choice for him not to use his ultimate because it would have been essentially a waste, but at the same time, of course, if you're a Kennen, you want to try and at least attempt to stun some people.
Yep, and it looks like TSM is going to take this Baron. Ward goes down, but it is late, and Kenneth isn't able to do anything. Actually taking a lot of damage from Cassiopeia.
Oh my goodness, that was a ton of damage. That was just from one Noxious Blast and one Twin Fang. It was 2/3 of his life. I feel like I must have missed something. There must have been more attacks there, but I'm pretty sure that's all there was, isn't it?
I think there was more. Yeah, I'm not sure how much it was, but it wasn't that much, and he still took a lot of damage. That poison doing so much. Cassiopeia 6-1 again with 219 CS compared to Xerath, who is down by about 60 CS.
Although that being said, Xerath has just about the same amount of AP as that Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is sitting on 338, which is actually in large part because of Baron buff. I believe that is granting her about 40 or 50 AP. Well, I'm sure we can check that out. Well, actually, we can't check it out in-game, but I'm pretty sure that's about the amount it gives. So without that, Xerath would have more, because of course Xerath rushed right into a Rabadon Z-Tap, and as I say that, Xerath is about to meet his doom. Does get away at the last moment there.
Yep, and the ultimate from Nautilus trying to help him get away, but he falls, and nothing here coming in with his ultimate, but has to back out, and the Wish coming down to help save Dyrus, actually. And they are going to... Oh, actually, Chaos coming in and killing Nautilus. So, looks like TSM...
Like everyone is going to get away unscathed, and then Chaos picks up a kill there. Has too much range.
Yep, so looks like TSM is going to pick up a couple turrets and even the inhibitor right now.
Oh, and the surrender vote does go down. Unfortunately, that fight was actually relatively close because Dyrus was base taking the turret the entire time, almost went down, had to use his ultimate, had to have Soraka's ultimate on top of that, but did escape, and I think, JPak probably made the right call here. They were down a significant amount, of course didn't have Baron, looks like they were about to lose that inhibitor, and probably would have lost more inhibitors, shortly thereafter because all those turrets were pushed. But, a great lesson from TSM, just schooling JPak in how to control their jungle. Of course, controlling their own jungle and controlling JPak's jungle throughout the entire game.
Yep, and really controlling that jungle helped them prevent Nautilus from really ganking. The ganks from Nautilus were basically a non-factor in this game because he had to farm up his own jungle to protect his jungle, but without being able to do that even that much, he was behind in levels, and he wasn't able to come in and give his team the ganks that they needed.
Yeah, the other ridiculous thing we might see here is the score is 8-2. There were only 10 kills in this game, total, combined, over 25 minutes. So it really wasn't like a very aggressive game in the sense that everyone was fighting all the time, but it was very aggressive in the sense that TSM was just taking control and, enforcing their will, imposing it over JPak and friends. So we will see how JPak tries to counter that next game, perhaps picks up a jungler with a little bit faster clearing speed, a little bit better dueling capacity maybe, and also maybe a mage with a little bit better dueling capacity early on. Xerath, of course, doesn't stand up incredibly well against Cassiopeia, especially in those early trade-offs, especially if he's being forced to get out of lane into the jungle.
Yep, and we actually see Azulal and JPak both 0, 0, and 0. So no kills, no deaths, and no assists, further emphasizing not really a game where there were a lot of kills here, but TSM really maintaining their lead with the control of the objectives, getting the towers, getting the buffs, getting Dragon, getting Baron, and really pushing their lead that way. Alright, so we are going to get the next game of this best of 3 series up for you. Meanwhile, we are going to take a little break as we get everybody into the room. So I will play a little bit of AOD music while you guys wait.
Welcome to Riot Games, we here in the studio. Drop a new champ every 2 weeks. The way we flow, ideas flowing from my head just like it's a river. Criticism don't face me, put a shield up like Sivir. Gonna make a burst DPS, then we thought just making capture. We don't want another got to happen happen again, we'll scrap him again. Christmas time we'll wrap him again, just chop him again. Cause he's gotta be able to farm up a lane. Gotta be rolling all these damages and drains life just like Swain. The players make all these demands, Why can't they just see? Not every champ comes out like X to the Z. The finishal is finishals. When he was brand new, he can knock up a whole team without pressing Q. Coming in first like the cordon bleu. Whole team's hopping mad, Captain Kangaroo. Been turning this over and over and over and over in my mind, thinking this new champ's ult should be an AoE blind. Just playing, that's way too OP, too much for me. We know what's what we want you to see. We don't want to break the game, we just want you to win it. You believe Trent's ult used to last 4.5 minutes? The theory is, he'd be glowing like phosphorus. Believe that? Preposterous.
There's a new champ for me to try. If he's OP, I'll make noobs cry. Balance issues, not surprised. Every 2 weeks, if that's not enough for me, my main just gotta buff for free. The flip and patch notes up for me. Every 2 weeks.
Now it's time to show him off the limelight. Champion spotlight. I'm throwing off the game, reading my name. When summoners writ, the lady tells you that an ally has been slain.
His Q is a skill shot with a range of 1,000,000, and when you kill a minion, it gives you 1,000,000,000.
His W's are passive, makes him cast faster. Activated, it instant kills Baron Nashor.
You know Kale's ult? Well, that's pretty much as easy to toggle. Yeah, and the mana cost is free.
The passive on the champ will leave the other team mortified, giving all your turrets a permanent fortified.
Imagine getting 20 stacks and sword of the occult and global suppression on Mordekaiser's ult.
Well, that's what his does, and it wouldn't be that bad if he didn't also do it while fooling just like Vlad. Build his room, JPak.
Alright, I am going to actually restart the stream really quick, so it's going to go offline for a short while. Should be back in about a minute or so, so stay around. Alright.
Yes, we heard there were some sound issues, so this will almost